From trade to territory, the company establishes power. Okay. Aurangzeb was the last of the powerful Mughal rulers. He established control over a very large part of the territory that is known as India. Okay. After his death in 1707, after death of Aurangzeb in 1707, many Mughal governors known as Subadars and big zamindars began asserting their authority and establishing regional kingdom. As powerful regional kingdoms emerged in various parts of India, Delhi could no longer function as an effective center. By the second half of the 18th century, that is from 1850 to onwards, however, a new power was emerging on the political horizon. The British emerged as powerful. Did you know that the British originally came as a small trading company? Were reluctant to the acquired territories. How then did they come to be master of a vast empire? In this chapter, we will discuss all about this. In 1600, East India Company acquired a charter from the ruler of England, that is Queen Elizabeth I. In 1600, British East India Company acquired a charter from Queen Elizabeth I, granting it the sole right to trade with the East. This meant that no other trading group. The Charter Act granted the power to no other group can trade in East except England. England only in East India Company can trade. This permission was granted through Charter Act 1600 by Queen Elizabeth. With this charter, company could venture across the oceans looking for new lands from which it could buy goods at a cheap price and carry them back to Europe to sell at higher prices. The company did not have to fear competition from the English trading companies. Mercantile trading companies in those days made profit primarily by excluding competition, so that they could buy cheap and sell dear. Mercantile means a business enterprise that makes profit primarily through trade, buying goods cheap and selling them at higher prices. The Royal Charter of 1600, however, could not prevent other Europeans like Portuguese, Danish, French, other European powers from entering the eastern markets. By the time the first English ships sailed down the west coast of Africa, around the Cape of Good Hope, and crossed the Indian Ocean, the Portuguese had already established their presence in the western coast of India. First, Vasco da Gama came to India in 1498. The presence of Portuguese in the western coast of India and had their base in Goa. In fact, it was Vasco da Gama, a Portuguese explorer, came in India in 1498. By the early 17th century, the Dutch too were exploring the possibilities of trade in the Indian Ocean. Soon the French traders arrived on the scene. All the companies were interested in buying the same things. The fine qualities of cotton and silk produced in India had a big market in Europe. Pepper, cloves, cardamom, cinnamon too were in great demand in Europe because of their climate. The spices are very demanded. Competition amongst the European companies inevitably pushed up the prices at which these goods could be purchased, and this reduced the profits that could be earned. The only way the trading companies could flourish was by eliminating rival competitors. The urge to secure markets therefore led to fierce battles between the trading companies throughout the 17th and 18th centuries. They regularly sank each other's ships, blockaded routes, and prevented rival ships from moving with supplies of goods. Trade was carried on with arms, and trading posts were protected through fortification. This effort to fortify settlements and carry on profitable trade also led to intense conflict with local rulers in Bengal. The company therefore found it difficult to separate trade from politics. Let us see how this happened. East India Company begins trade in Bengal. The first English factory was set up on the banks of the river Hooghly in 1651. This was the base from which the company's trader known at that time as factors operated. The first English factory was set up on the banks of the river Hooghly in 1651. This was the base from which the company's traders, known at the time as factors, operated. The factory had a warehouse where goods for export were stored, and it had offices where company officials sat. As trade expanded, the company persuaded merchants and traders to come and settle near the factory. By 1696, it began building a fort around the settlement. 2 years later, that is 1698, it bribed Mughal officials into giving the company zamindari rights over 3 villages. One of these was Kalikata, which later grew into the city of Kolkata or Kolkata, as it was known today. It also persuaded the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb to issue a farman. What is farman? A royal edict or royal order. The company persuaded to the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb to issue a farman granting the company the right to trade duty free. The company tried to continuously to press for more concessions and manipulate existing privileges. Aurangzeb's farman, for instance, had granted only the company the right to trade duty free, but officials of the company who were carrying on private trade on the side were expected to pay duty. This they refused to pay, causing an enormous loss of revenue for Bengal. How could the Nawab of Bengal, Murshid Quli Khan, not protest? How trade led to battles. This was the image of Robert Clive, officials of East India Company. Through the early 18th century, the conflict between the company and the Nawabs of Bengal intensified. Conflict between the company and the Nawabs intensified in Bengal in 18th century, early 18th century. After the death of Aurangzeb in 1707, the Bengal Nawabs asserted their power and autonomy, as other regional powers were doing at that time. Murshid Quli Khan was followed by Alivardi Khan, and then Sirajuddaula was the Nawab of Bengal. Each one of them was a strong ruler. They refused to grant the company concessions, demanded large tributes for the company's right to trade, denied it any right to mint coins, and stopped it from extending its fortifications, accusing the company for deceit. They claimed that the company was depriving the Bengal's government of huge amounts of revenue and undermining the authority of the Nawab. It was refusing to pay taxes, writing disrespectful letters, and trying to humiliate the Nawabs and his officials. The company on its part declared that the unjust demands of the local officials were ruining the trade of the company, and the trade could flourish only if the duties were removed. It was also convinced that the expand trade it had to enlarge its settlement of villages and rebuild its forts. The conflicts led to confrontation and finally culminated in the famous of in the famous Battle of Plassey.